David Cunliffe.
Mr Speaker, I'm pleased to take this opportunity to say that the Labour opposition will be supporting this, the maiden bill of the new Minister of Revenue, the bright and shiny Todd McClay, who's got up early this morning to come to the House to read the speech that one of his officials has clearly written for him, and we compliment the officials for their excellent work in that regard. And what a fine start he's made, Mr Speaker. He's gone where Jonathan Coleman didn't go, sir, and he's actually picked up the right speech notes and read the right speech. What a brilliant start. And I have to say, the member opposite was a pretty decent chairman of the FEC, and we wish him well for the 2 or 3 weeks it takes for us to bring his ministerial career to an end. Mr Chairman, why is he here? Why is he here? And the answer to that is very, very simple. It is because the Honourable Peter Dunn is not here. Why is the Honourable Peter Dunn not here? Because he is no longer a minister. Why is he no longer a minister? Well, he assured the Finance and Expenditure Committee that he did not leak sensitive GCSB documents to a journalist. He gave a point-blank assurance. Unfortunately, when he gave the same point-blank assurance to the Prime Minister said, "Well, I'd love to believe you, but you're gone." So he's gone, and Todd McClay is here. And that'll be a very interesting ride for him, because he's got his work cut out. While Peter Dunn was busy thinking about matters of the ether, the revenue portfolio was going to rack and ruin before his very eyes. And Todd McClay has got a huge job to tidy up the portfolio before it unravels. Nitpicking taxes, like the car park tax, like the iPad tax. Imagine applying fringe benefit tax to the personal use of computers or cell phones. The cost of working out which calls were private and which were public would have been far more than the tax was worth. What about applying fringe benefit tax to car parks for shift workers, or only for businesses in the CBD but not 2 streets further over? Those are the kind of bizarre tax ideas that emanated from the IRD under the previous hapless minister. Hopefully not under this hapless minister. Mr Speaker, they were withdrawn under pressure from the Labour opposition, from Labour unions, from business groups, and it has caused a great deal of pushback, because we all know that the word went out from the Minister of Finance's office to the Minister of Revenue and to the IRD officials, and it went something like this: if it can get $5 million or more, for God's sake, tax it, because we are desperate to get to a budget surplus, and we'll use any tool in the toolbox to get there, real or imagined. Mr Speaker, in the budget debate, we uncovered the fact that so many of the fiscal and revenue tools being used by this government were straining credibility. We're in the realm of the fictitious, like a $400 million tax spike in the year 2014-15 alone, due to the magical appearance of some redeemed tax credits, or a $1 billion spike in corporate tax revenue, or a $1.2 billion spike in personal tax revenue. So, Mr Speaker, the Minister's going to have to establish some credibility pretty quickly to tidy up those kind of rubber numbers that have infected the fiscals. Mr Speaker, the IRD's mainframe computer system is in tatters, and the officials have recommended an open chequebook of $1 billion to $1.5 billion, sir, to rebuild their pet computer. Well, it is important, and the Labour government that's coming in will have to fix it up too. But we will not be writing a blank cheque to officials for $1 billion computer. I have no idea, sir, how you could pay $1 billion for a computer. Let me just say that the Cabinet and the outgoing Honourable Minister were so unsure of themselves that they had to build in a teeny-weeny contingency margin. How much? $500 million of contingency margin. So on his first day in the House as Minister, I say to the Honourable Todd McClay, get out your pencil, get out the ruler and measure up that $500 million grey area and fix it up, because we're going to be coming after it, and if you don't fix it, Minister, we'll be coming after you. And while you're on it, about the time is now, Minister, that you should be worrying about the erosion of the tax base. Please don't do what the Honourable Peter Dunn did and said, look, we know multinational companies are laying waste to our tax base by shifting profits across internet sales. We know the Googles and the Apples and other multinational giants are really hard to tax, but don't worry, the OECD's working on it. Well, the OECD, sir, is doing good work, and we commend that, and we would agree that we should be participating in it. But here's the difference. Those clowns over there, Mr. Speaker, are happy to wait for Paris to do something in the springtime. We are not. We are saying, sir, that the government is negligent if it does not pursue domestic initiatives in parallel. And for example, sir, the Labour opposition is actively looking at the issue of the threshold for GST on purchases online of foreign source goods, because that is creating an incentive to disembowel the New Zealand retail sector, and that needs very serious consideration. But base erosion and multinational taxation cannot wait for some think tank in Europe to get its act together in 3 or 4 years, because hundreds of millions of dollars of New Zealand revenue are at stake in the meantime. And while we're on that theme, for the Minister's maiden recitation of what the officials have given him, let me mention 2 mega issues which revenue must play a part in. The first is the growing inequality of income in New Zealand. There's a little thing called the Gini coefficient, and it measures the difference between the 20th percentile and the 80th, and the gap is getting wider. And there are some revenue purists who say that people should never consider the role of the tax system in income distribution, and I say bunk 'em. Tax is always a matter of revenue redistribution, and the government's major tax steps in this term of Parliament were to take from the poor and give to the rich in an iniquitous tax switch that gave 40% of the winnings to the top 10% of income payers. And it's still the case, Minister, that 3/4 of the wealthiest 100 New Zealanders are not on the top tax rate. They declare annual income of $70,000 or less per annum, and that is a national scandal. So if you want to pay for food in schools, if you want to pay for roads of national significance, do your job and make sure all New Zealanders pay their fair and legal share of tax. Do not turn a blind eye just because they are your big business mates. Not you, Mr. Speaker, the incoming Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, this bill is a small part of the tax work program. This bill is a useful step forward in clarifying the superannuation rules. We have no dispute with the objective of this bill. Mr. Speaker, I will, however, mention several factors which are very important in its construction that we will be looking at the Select Committee. The first is, by the Minister's own admission, the mining sector has had a free and advantageous run in the tax system. This bill goes some way towards re-equalising that. Does it go far enough? Well, that will be a very interesting question to test. Mr. Speaker, this bill tries to simplify the taxation of foreign-held superannuation funds for New Zealand residents, and in doing so, sir, it looks at imputation credits and Australian dividends, and it uses the fact that there is a double tax treaty to convey a particular exemption for our Aussie mates. Well, that's very good, but when is this government going to do something about the fact that the New Zealand corporate sector is being rorted by the Australians over the non-convergence of the taxation of corporate dividend imputation? Why is the government sitting on its hands while there is a tax advantage to Australian business over New Zealand that they have been unwilling or unable to negotiate a solution to, despite the urgings of the Productivity Commission, and we will ask whether that issue can be picked up in this bill. Mr Speaker, whether the bill makes sufficient difference between contributory and non-contributory schemes, whether it addresses the interpretation of KiwiSaver and other portfolio investment entities, and how it interfaces with the broader foreign investment fund rules, are all second-tier issues that will merit the Select Committee's consideration. But today, for now, in this maiden speech of the bright and shiny new minister, who unfortunately inherits a very non-bright, non-shiny portfolio, he has a lot of work to do.
Time has expired. John Hayes.